Hello, welcome back. Today we're going to have a look at one of my favorite brands and service this watch. And that is the Revue, now known as Revue Tommen. This one is a Revue Sport, which is the, water resistant / waterproof, as they said back in the day, cases. This is the old stainless steel version with one of my favorite lugs on any watch. These are just such a nice shape to them. Really solid stainless steel cases, fantastic quality. You almost never see any pitting on them. You do find some in plated cases, but the biggest majority is in stainless steel. Anyway, this one has an amazing two-tone dial. I'm not sure if it's a tropic patina on that or if it was delivered brand new, but it has a very nice sheen to it, and it will come out great. So you can obviously tell this will need a service. I haven't even put it on the time graph, but you can just tell by the amount of grime and dirt that's accumulated on the case that it is quite a while since this has been opened. So first we're going to see if we can open it with the ball, which we can, luckily. Sometimes these seize shut and are almost impossible to close. Not too worried about gunk coming into the watch because I'm going to service it. So this has one of the older calibers. Well, this I guess is a watch from around 1950, I reckon, or maybe 48 and upwards, I'm not sure. But it has a caliber 59. This was also used in the Vertex Dirty Dozen watch. They had a cooperation with Revue. I'm not sure if they were the same company, but they used Revue movements, and yeah, so it has a good heritage, this movement. I've done a movement review on this. It's on the website mitka.co.uk. You can check it out. Yeah, very nice movement. This one is in excellent condition, as you can see. Nice decorated version as well with beveled edges. Very nice decoration on the crown and ratchet wheel with the beveled, high polished edge on the teeth and engraved logo. In-house movement. So yeah, called the GT59. Very nice. A good way of seeing that that's a while since your watch has been serviced is looking at the gasket. And in this case, we still have a lead gasket. Look at that. It's safe to say they stopped using lead gaskets pretty much in the mid-50s and onwards, but some watchmakers had stocks of them lying around. But yeah, it's safe to say I don't think this watch has been serviced in 5 to 6 decades, hence it's in good condition. It's had one service before. I can see a service mark on the, or two services, one here and one here, and that was probably done in the 50s, maybe early 60s, but yeah, I think I'm the first person to service this in over 50 years. So I guess we'll start by setting the hands. Like so. It'll be easier to get them off, and we can get the movement out of the case. Definitely a very cool dial on this, I have to say. Oh, those hands were very tight on there. There we go. But we got it off without damaging the dial, which is nice. Put these hands to the side. For the sub-dial hand, I'm simply going to take this movement holder ring out. I'm going to loosen the dial screws and lift the sub-second hand off with the dial itself, because it's so close to the sub-dial surface that I'm afraid any tool's going to scratch those delicate engravings there, or the ridges. Just make sure those dial screws are all the way out, so I'm not pushing against them. There we go. See how nicely that sub-second hand came off? And it did not affect the sub-dial a bit, so good way of removing those. So, dial off. Have a look at the back of the dial. Very nice. So here you can see the setting and winding mechanism. Everything seems to be in good order. Quite happy with that. I'm now going to fast forward, taking the movement apart, just to keep the length of these videos down, and I'll do real time putting it back together. I feel taking something apart and back together in real time is pretty much showing the same thing, just in reverse order. So we're going to cut it down a bit by doing a bit of fast film magic. If I do encounter something special or unexpected, I will slow down and we'll discuss it on the way. Here you can see the balance is moving freely. That's always a good sign. I like to fit the shock protection jewels and cap jewels before I do anything else. That way I can eliminate that the balance axle is tight in between the balance cock and the plate, or if there's any other defects, you can see that quite clearly. So what will happen if you have a problem is that the balance wheel won't move backwards and forwards as freely as it does here. Of course, I have to remove the balance cock and balance to put the rest of the gear train back together. This movement didn't look so dirty when I took it apart, but every jewel I had to pegwood and use Rodico to remove old grease which had solidified and completely gunked it up. Probably the main reason why it wasn't running before. So I'm now going to start by putting a little bit of oil in the lower barrel arbor hole and in the center wheel hole. So I'm going to start putting the gear train back in place, as you can see I'm doing here. I like to pre-oil the center wheel and the barrel arbor, like so. And then I oil the other pivots once the bridges are in place. This is a very nice version of calibre 59. You do find them in a more basic layout, but this has individual bridge for the balance wheel, which is quite nice. And see, so I'm going to put all the bridges on here now, except for the balance cock. I'm going to do that later. I'm going to line this up under the microscope to make sure I don't break any pivots. Pivots have been aligned with the jewel holes, and I have secured the pins and the bridges. What I mean by pins is that on the underside you will have these guiding pins here that go into the base plate. Another nice thing about this movement is that there's not too much wear in the upper barrel hole or the center wheel, center wheel, because whenever you have excessive wear, you'll have to fit a new bushing, and that requires quite a bit of extra work. You will see that on some of my former videos where I have replaced, or I have fitted a new bushing in the upper barrel arbor hole. If you go onto my Sume calibre 586 video, you will see the process involved doing that. Now I'm going to fit the escape wheel. Again, I'm going to look underneath the microscope, make sure that the pivot aligns with the jewel hole. Now it's aligned and I can secure it with the screw. Also very nice finishing on the screws here. High polished surface. Just look at that beautiful ratchet wheel here. Really nice detail on that high polished beveled edge. Well, I'm going to brought in an Omega 30T2 movement just for comparison. You can look at the finish on the ratchet wheel, and in general you can look at the finish of the movement of the Revue and the Omega. So you tell me which one you think looks like the higher grade movement. I think they're very similar, but when it comes to the finishing on the ratchet wheel and the crown wheel, definitely the Revue has a nicer finish. I do know that the chronometer rated versions of this do have a similar finish to the standard Revue here. That's not to say that all Revues are this nicely finished. It's just this variant of the 59 has had extra attention to detail. So let's go back to putting this together. I suppose the intention of doing a comparison like that is just it's just nice to show that it doesn't have to say Omega or Rolex on your movement for it to be of a good quality. Another very nice detail is this when the crown wheel comes in here, you have this nice little fitting that goes on the top. So this acts both as because this is brass, it would wear very quickly if it was in contact with the metal here. It acts also as an inner bushing for the surface contact here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a tiny bit of oil here, and I'm also going to add oil on the inside here. Should also put it in the right order, otherwise we won't get fun. There we go. See how this metal surface now is protecting the plate itself, like so. Very, very nice construction. I'll also put a little drop of oil here on where the contact point where it can hit the screw. Important to remember, this is a left-hand thread. There we go. Unfortunately, there's no markings on these ones to indicate that it's left-hand thread, so you just got to know that when you work on it. At this point, I'm going to oil the movement. What I'm going to oil is the escape wheel jewels and the gear train pivots here. And I'm going to use a little bit of 9010 Mobius and 9020 on these two. So very thin viscosity in the escape wheel and slightly thicker on the gear train. What you want to do is get a little droplet down by the pivot. You don't want to overfill the cup. You just want to go about, fill the cup about halfway. Yeah. Going to do that underneath the microscope. Again, speaking of surface finish, very nice finish on the dial side of this movement. See how nicely that reflects the light. Good machining down here. and you can even see they have blued the setting lever screw. So overall, very nice finish on this movement. Now we're going to put the setting and winding mechanism back in place. So the first thing to do is fit the setting lever. Actually, what I'm going to do is I'm going to fit the clutch pinion, cannon pinion. A bit of red oil on that, so it has a little bit to move on. Important to press this down straight, like so. I want to fit this now before I fit the intermediate minute wheel, hour wheel I mean, because it you don't want these teeth to touch when you press it down, so it's best to do that first. Secondly, I'm now going to put a bit of grease on the sliding surfaces of the stem, winding stem, and a little bit of blue grease on the winding pinion, on the teeth there. Let's put the winding pinion in place. That goes down there, and after that we can fit the sliding pinion. So the winding pinion's main job, this one, is to wind the movement, and the sliding pinion's main job is to set the time. So this will engage with, well, the sliding pinion works with both setting the time and winding the movement. So this engages like so to wind the time, and that's controlled by the yoke. And when you push it up, the yoke will engage with push this upwards and engage with the time, and this won't be engaged. So yeah, that wasn't the most eloquent of explanations, but I'll show you again as we put it back together. Now for the setting lever here. So that's tightened by the setting lever screw on the other side. Best thing is to loosen the movement. Put your finger, you got gloves on, so you're fairly clean. Turn it around. Hope that your thread is engaged, and tighten it like so. See that? And now the setting lever is in place. So what the setting lever does is secure the stem here, and it also engages with the yoke that comes in here. The yoke is actually an intermediate lever that engages with your sliding pinion. See, that comes in here, like so. I have greased a bit of the sliding surfaces. You might as well have a little extra, it doesn't hurt at this point. So when this is down, this is kept down by your yoke spring, which comes in here. That's kept down, and then when you put it out to set the time, you are essentially pulling it up so, as such, and that will engage with the time setting, intermediate time setting wheels here. Push it down, and engages with the winding pinion again. So in order to, what happens sometimes is when you pull it out, it wants to, when you pull your crown out in setting position, your yoke will be pushed by the yoke spring here, will want to go back to winding position straight away. But to avoid that, we have this, which is a setter lever spring, which will help, that will click. In this situation, it's a bit different design. It comes from the top down. You see this little notch here? That will click into place on the underside, on the lever of this. Very unusual construction, actually. And help keep the watch in setting position. So let's secure this. Very fine screws here. Make sure this is engaging properly. So. See, that clicks into position. That will help you keep it in setting position and in winding position. So now it's time to put in the intermediate setting wheels. Come in here, put a little bit of grease on there so that will have less friction. This movement utilizes 2 intermediate wheels. Sometimes you just have 1, but that's fine. Quite a small screw again, a little bit difficult to fit it underneath the camera here. But anyway, that's in place. Now we can set the time. And I have good friction, because you can see the gear train is moving with the cannon pinion. I know it's not too much friction, but that's just right. So happy with that. Now let's flip the movement around and we can fit the pallet fork. So that's the pallet fork in position. I can now screw the pallet cock back into place. And that's secure, and the next thing will be to wind a movement. But before I fit the balance, we're going to oil the balance cock. So I have done a quite detailed video on this before, but just as a recap, we want a little bit of oil on the sliding surface of the pallet jewels that will engage with the escape wheel. I'll show you a picture under a microscope in 1 sec. We have dispersed the oil from the pallet onto the escape wheel. It's time for the moment of truth, and that is fitting the escape wheel again. Fitting this, I want to have the impulse pin on the outside perimeter of the pallet fork, and the pallet fork has to be facing the incoming impulse pin. If you come in from the other side, it will block and not work. Here we go. Well, that's running. It looks to have a good amplitude, so that's good. The next thing I'm going to do is put it on the timer graph and see how well it's running. So here is one of the more annoying things when you're working on a watch, and that is when you have cleaned it too well, or in this case there's too much power in the mainspring, and that's what we call banking. So literally it's too much force going to the mainspring. Right, I have replaced the mainspring, and as you can see the amplitude has now dropped to about 245 to 250, which is okay for this movement. It's much better than at banking, and it doesn't put so much tension on the gear train. So this will keep decent time now, and I'm quite happy with that. This is the dial side up. Turn around to dial side down. Now it's dial side up. See what it does. Let that settle. It's a little bit slower, dial side up, so that's going to about -1, I reckon. The amplitude is a little bit lower. Let's let that settle as it's going up again. Good. -2. So a bit of variational difference on the timekeeping. +1, but that's yeah. 247 amplitude is going up again. It's rising. So that's good. About 250, both positions good. +4 seconds. So it's actually settling with about 6 seconds difference from the dial down position. So now I'm going to do a third test, which is crown down. Of course, the amplitude will now drop, but the positional variation is pretty good. It's keeping time pretty good here. Let's let that settle. 203 amplitude is to be expected on the side. That settles at -15 after a few seconds on being on the side. That's pretty good. That's very good actually for a watch of this vintage. Let's see if I turn it around. See, dial up, no, crown up. Losing a little bit of time again, as with the crown down. But to be honest, it's very good. So if I put the watch back to its dial down position, the amplitude will go up, and the timekeeping will gain a bit of time again. So overall, it's going to keep pretty good time because one position compensates for the other. No, I think this is going to keep very good time for a watch from around 1950, late 40s, early 50s watch. I'm very happy with that. Now we have a healthy beating movement. I think it's time we put the dial hands back onto it and put it into its case. So we can start by loosening up our dial screws. like so. We can put the I'm going to put the hour wheel on. Drop of oil. There we go. Comes the little spring washer that allows the well, keeps the hour wheel from jumping if you have a shock. It's a beautiful chocolate gloss dial. Come back onto the movement. I have not done a lot to it. I've just gently tidied off any loose specks of dust. So we want to get this back onto the case here. Let's have a look. I need to loosen this screw a bit more, I'm not sure. There we go. Now the first thing I like to do on the sub-second dial watches is fit the second hand. So in this case I've left the luminous compound alone and I've left the hands alone because it all ties very well together in terms of patina on this dial. It looks very good. There's no point getting brand new shiny hands and fresh lume on something like this. Kind of ruins the plot a bit. So the trick with the sub-second hands is of course making sure that they don't scrape along your dial. That would be it's not very nice. You do see a lot of these sub-second hands, sub-second dial with scratch marks going around. So ideally something we'd like to avoid. Right, now we can fit the hour and minute hand. Again, I could have decided to polish these up, but I'm going to leave them just the way they are. Not out of being lazy, but more as a conscious choice that I think it will tie this watch together. Make sure that the sweep second hand and minute hand don't clash. So if they touch, that would be, the watch would stop. See, that's got good clearance on both. Happy with that. Next I'm going to first align this at 6 o'clock. Very lightly. We're going to see how it looks at 12 o'clock, and then if I'm happy I'm going to tighten the minute hand onto the cannon pinion. I think that looks very nice. I'm going to tighten that now. There we go. Make sure we have a decent clearance. We can go a little bit further down as well. Like so. Wow, look at that. What a beautiful dial. So one thing that was really letting this watch down was the dirty case. Now I have cleaned the case up. I've not polished it. Just left it as it is and fitted a new low dome crystal. Now I'm going to loosen the stem and put the movement into the case again. the setting lever secured again. Perfect. Very nice. Movements back in the case. As you can see, I got this little movement ring, which is the quite typical of this time period. You can see this both in Longines and Omega and other brands, so it's not unusual to see it. The idea is that this will push down on the side of the movement and probably a little ledge on the movement and the dial itself, and clamp it so that the movement doesn't move around when you put the screw down case back in. Next thing I'm going to do is have a look under the microscope, remove any fibers, any specks of dust, etc. And I'm going to fit the case back. Okay, all the dust specks removed. What do I think? Well, I think I've been quite praising of this movement for the service. As a wrap-up, I would say it's very robust, solid beta, and in this decoration format, a very nice movement as well. Definitely one to look out for. So I fitted a new case back gasket in rubber, not lead as it was in there before, and let's tighten the case back. Again, I mentioned this when I was taking the watch apart. Very nice solid cases, very good quality stainless steel. Very rare you find pitting on these, so overall very impressive. And let's have a look at the watch itself. Here we go. This is definitely what I would kind of call a patina style watch. It's got that chocolate coffee brown dial, still very nice yellow color on the radium lume. Very difficult to replicate that, even though you do have people very good with luminous compound. I do work with that myself, as you might have seen on other videos, but this one is it's very cool because you got the black aging and still the bright yellow in the middle, and the hands are matched up very nicely to that. Well, that's because it's original. The sub-second dial, really clear, nice, not any scratches there. You can get the idea of this watch here. So I'm going to fit this onto a nice strap, probably something, I'll probably have a brown strap, pretty sure of that, see what I have, and I might as well wear it a bit because it's my own watch, and it might end up on the website as a watch you could buy if you're interested. We'll see. I might end up keeping it. It's very, very cool. Until next time, have a good one and take care.